My mom does a year in prison, gets out, and then we move into a low-income women and children's shelter where now we're on welfare. And the area that we moved to was Santa Monica. So, all my peers were better off than I was. They had all the flyest kicks, all the newest gear. Back to school wasn't an issue for them. But for me, I'm on welfare. So it was a challenge. And then I'm angry. The family just exploded. So I have a lot of anger issues. My mom couldn't afford to buy me shoes, and I'm rocking Payless shoes, and I'm playing basketball, working on my left-handed layup, and I got big holes in my sneakers. And, her trying to be resilient, and she came up with this idea that I didn't really agree with, but she's like, let's just put some cardboard in your shoe so it can make the pair last a little longer. And I was
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here at Off the Cuff, where conversations lead to inspiration. The LA edition. We're here in Los Angeles with the founder of Have a Soul, a nonprofit organization where their mission is to provide at-risk youth and homeless people with quality footwear to encourage happiness, confidence, and health. They've touched thousands of lives across the country by providing over 40,000 sneakers to those in need. He's appeared on The Ellen Show, numerous publications, and has collaborated with Nike, the Los Angeles Rams, Dallas Mavs, and the list goes on. I'm super excited for this episode here. So without further ado, here's Off the Cuff with Rikki Mendias. Rikki.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. LA is in the house.
Yes, you're rocking it on the hat, right?
You see it.
Exactly, man. I love what you do. We highlighted a little bit more about what you kind of did in the intro. And I really want to capture the essence of kind of how it all started, right? I want to give the viewers a little bit more of a background story of kind of how all this came about. One day, just through the cycle of me looking for talent and reaching out to the people who I believe are super inspirational, like yourself.
Thank you.
My fiance, who's in the room today, shout outs to her. She actually told me about you. She was watching a home edit episode, and she's like, yo, you have to get this guy on the show. And she showed me that little clip where you kind of appeared. And at that moment, I started just to dive in a little bit more into your story, what you were about. I fell into this pigeonhole, and I was like, no, I literally got goosebumps because I'm like, I need this guy on the show.
Appreciate that.
And, in full circle moment, we're here today.
Here we are.
And that's a beautiful thing with just attracting good and people doing good. You kind of attract that energy back. So, I want to talk a little bit more about your story and kind of Have a Soul and the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, well, no, first of all, thank you so much for having me. The story of Have a Soul, man, really starts when I was 9 years old, and happy family, me, my dad, my brother, my mom, all under one roof, normal family. I'm 9 years old, and I'm not aware that they are abusing and using drugs and alcohol. So much to the point where, one night my mom has a psychotic break while on methamphetamines and, has this idea that her husband is cheating. And, it's just something happened to where everything went wrong. And I'm sleeping on the couch, and then, I'm awoken, or, I'm awakened by the LA County sheriffs. So I'm like, what happened? And it turns out that my mom had shot the other woman in the arm. And yeah, she was right. He was in fact cheating. And so that night everything changed, happy family to just ground zero. Life has been shaken up. So from there, my mom does a year in prison, gets out, and then we move into a low-income women and children's shelter where now we're on welfare. And the area that we moved to was Santa Monica. So, all my peers were better off than I was. They had all the flyest kicks, all the newest gear. Back to school wasn't an issue for them. But for me, I'm on welfare. So it was a challenge. And then I'm angry, the family just exploded. So I have a lot of anger issues. My mom couldn't afford to buy me shoes, and I'm rocking Payless shoes, and I'm playing basketball, working on my left-handed layup, and I got big holes in my sneakers. And, you know, her trying to be resilient, and she came up with this idea that I didn't really agree with, but she's like, let's just put some cardboard in your shoe so it can make the pair last a little longer. And I was like, man, that's stupid. You know, and now I'm 10. And then one morning, a woman who lived at the shelter before us was coming and sharing her story, and noticed I had big holes in my sneakers, and ended up taking me to the Vans store and bought me 2 pairs of Vans. So, you know, I remember the smell, I remember the touch, the fabrics, and everything that came with that, like the confidence that came with the pair, both pairs. And I was like, wow, okay. No matter what I do, I want new shoes in my life. So life moves on, and I was really just a troubled youth myself, is what I'd probably be labeled. Let's see here. Didn't graduate from high school. Got kicked out. I was arrested a few times before I turned 18. Yeah, the list goes on, man. I was really heading down a similar path than what my family did. So from there, I went straight to work. I did jobs like construction, Toys R Us, pet store, Costco. And no matter what happened with these jobs, I would definitely grab a new pair of shoes every week, you know, every paycheck, no matter what. From SBs to high top blazers or high top dunks and Jordans and Air Forces, patent leather Air Force, like just all of them. And I just, no matter what. But what started to happen was, you know, I was hiding behind the material items, you know, like, you know, just trying to buy Louis belts and just trying to really maintain this appearance that I was fitting in, right? But I was always just like, man, kind of just hiding in plain sight, right? Like, because I wasn't comfortable in most rooms. I felt like I held no value. I had no ability to hold conversations, no education, didn't graduate high school. Like, so these are things that I would often tell myself in every situation, right? But one thing I did feel comfort from were my sneakers. So more years go by, kind of lost, and, you know, I get fired from a couple jobs, and I'm, you know, you're just like one moment away from becoming homeless again. And it's like, damn, this is crazy. So, yeah, miracle happened. My mom got me a job as a production assistant on commercials. I ended up booking a commercial, also as talent. And yeah, everything just kind of changed there. And then I started to PA on these commercials and met a lot of people. And I remember I was working on a music video, and I had my little like Canon Elf, and I was shooting just the talent. And it was a group called Brother featuring Fabulous. So I was shooting Fab. And this is back before social media days, right? Yeah. So there was like no NDAs. There was no nothing. Like, you could just shoot. And I was like capturing all the moments, the background dancers, like everybody. And for whatever reason, I showed the director one of my pictures or 2 of them. And he was like, oh, those are amazing. You should get paid for that. You should get paid to do that. And I was like, what? I can do that? So I found photography, and I fell in love with taking pictures of fashion and sunsets and just like landscapes. And yeah, I got really good at it. So, you know, there were moments where I was like, man, I want to become a world famous photographer. But then I would start to sabotage myself and say, like, I don't really have the business mind or education to get paid for my work. So I couldn't figure out how to do it. I was just so in love with creating, and like, you know, you'd have a model there, you'd have your wardrobe stylist and your hair and makeup, and we'd all be creating something, and everyone loved the images that came out of all of it. But for some reason, I couldn't figure out how to get paid for that. So more years go by, and you know, social media lands, and I'm like, okay, cool. I built somewhat of an organic Instagram following with, you know, a lot of fashion models and all that. And I was like, okay, cool. This is a good direction. But then I was just like, man, this, you know, the direction and passion for photography started to just fall apart. And from there, I was like, okay, what am I doing now? And then at this point, I have 150 pairs of shoes in my collection, and I'm only wearing about 6 of them. So I started to despise where the sneaker culture went, camping out, trying to get shoes that I had no access to getting. And it's like, damn, this is getting crazy. So, one night I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I was like, what am I doing with my life? And God was like, give away your sneaker collection and I'll show you what you're doing. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So then from that moment, woke up the next morning, that next morning, I called one of my friends and he was like, oh, that's a dumb idea. You're not going to do it. Called my mom. She was like, oh, just, think about it some more. You love your sneakers. I was like, no, I've never been more certain of anything. I'm giving these out. So from there, that was when Have a Soul was born. And, I'll kind of close that story with, all this trauma that I faced as a kid, the family just in pieces. My mom actually wrote a book about it called Motherload. And, where it goes into detail about the night that she shot the woman, just all of the mess that my parents created for us. And, she put it all on the paper and I was so proud of her. And then, my father actually read the book and we were like, oh, what is he going to say? This is crazy. And he calls me up after he reads the book and he's like, I wish I would have been a better father. And then also just see my older brother, with 4 kids of his own and just being such an amazing father is awesome to see, like all of the healing that came, not just from the book, but it took a lot of work, but definitely that moment he reached out, my dad, when he reached out and said, I wish I would have been a better father, that meant a lot to me.
How was that conversation when he reached out?
The conversation was, it was surprising because, you see your phone ring and I don't get a lot of phone calls from my dad. So it was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what's up? And then, I just finished reading the book and I was like, oh, what'd you think? Not expecting much, like no accountability. I wasn't really expecting anything. But to hear him say that was like, it just healed a lot of the relationship. We don't get a chance to see each other often, but I think that was a moment where I can say, all right, I do forgive you.
Wow. And I think there's also very important for us to also, keep in mind that you actually helped with the creation of the book by shooting the image in the front, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment, how significant that moment was for you.
That was special. I didn't get paid for it. You know what I mean? But hey, you know what I mean? It's for moms.
Right. So, Mama Dukes.
Yeah, that was a special moment because, it was her vision. She wanted to do a laundry basket with her dirty laundry and then a pistol on top of the book, or I'm sorry, on top of the laundry basket. She's airing out her dirty laundry in this book. So then I brought in a good friend of mine named Mark Croffle, who is an amazing, just creative all around, from directing to just so much. So he came in and helped me do the set design, and I took the picture, and then we collaborated on the book cover. And that means a lot to me just as a photographer, being able to support my mom in such a way. So it was special.
Yeah. And, you speak about that as well, right? Where you had this almost epiphany, where you looked at your closet, you had 150 pairs of sneakers, and you were asking yourself a lot of these tough questions of like, what is my purpose? And can you just take us back into that space and that conversation and what really was that pivotal moment for you where everything just lit up?
Yeah, I think the moment Have a Soul was thought of and born, it was a gift from God for me. But it was from a place of sadness. It was a place of self-pity. It was a place of just, unknowing, where I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Okay. And then I'm constantly beating myself up with, you're not smart enough to create your own business. You don't have a high school diploma. You never went to college. You don't belong in these rooms. You don't, it was just constant, just like, dude, self-doubt. Like, what are you doing? And then when you're like, whoa, I'm gonna give away my sneaker collection. And originally it started off as like a photo series where, I wanted to track the journey of the tennis shoes. Because, if you think about a pair like the De La Souls. I remember I got them at Hot Rod, which was a sneaker shop in Westwood. And, I remember back when I got them, and, I remember the journey. I remember what outfits I used to wear. So I thought it would be pretty cool to see, like, in a picture, just tracking the journey of a sneaker and where they ended up. So it was a special moment to just say, okay, cool, I'm going to give these up and really just tell the story visually.
That's beautiful. And you did something very particular, and I want you to kind of talk a little bit more about that, because after that, through just me, my research, and just seeing you on so many other channels, you packed your van. Tell us about that moment, what you did next.
Yeah, I mean, packed up the Ford Explorer, the 97 Ford Explorer, and just hit the streets, man, and tried to give out shoes. And I remember the first person that I tried to give shoes to, his name is Phoenix. And, I walk up to him and he's sleeping, but not really in a deep sleep. How deep of a sleep can you be in living on the streets? And I asked Phoenix, I'm like, hey man, what size shoe are you? And he's like, 13. I'm like, I'm a 10 and a half, so I don't have a pair for him in the moment. So I had hoodies. I remember early on, I was like, man, I'm gonna give away everything that I don't use. So I got a pair of some wool socks, some hoodies, like some warm clothes. And so I tried to, hey, Phoenix, you want this hoodie? You want these socks? He was like, yeah, but sit down. And he's like, he says three things to me, and I'll move through the story quickly. But he's like, first thing I do when I sit down, he's like, don't trust that girl. And I'm like, that's a very odd thing to say. Mm-hmm. Does he not like women? And this is me just like thinking internally, like, does he not like women? Is he talking about his mom, his wife? What is he talking about? So I kind of just laugh it off. Yeah. Second thing he says, he's like, how are things with you and your father? And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And just a couple of weeks before that, when I met Phoenix, my father nearly passed away from an overdose. He had a back injury and he started using again. So that was like crazy. He was like, make sure you call your dad. Wow. You know what I mean? And I was like, this is crazy. What is going on? Then the third thing he says, he's like, what do you do for a living? And I was like, well, I'm a photographer. And then he asked me the question. He's like, have you ever been published? I'm like, damn, Phoenix, man, you're just going in on me today, man. I've never, no. Then he looks up at the sky and he's like, don't worry. I'm going to tell him exactly what he needs to hear. Wow. And he comes back down. He focuses on me. He says, put your pictures on the internet and let everybody see them. He flips over his change cup and he's like, this is all I have to my name. He's like, I can go to work right now. I can look up anything on a computer and, they just won't give me a shot. He's like, so make sure you put your pictures out there. And I was like, okay, cool. So then we had like a 30-minute conversation and I leave and I'm like, okay, I got to get Phoenix to 13. So I took to social media. I was like, hey guys, we need more sizes. I need a size 13. My friend Pierre was like, I got about 10 pairs of 13s I can give you. And I was like, thanks, P. All right. So then I took them back. And when I saw Phoenix the next week, he was wearing the hoodie I gave him. And I was like, hey, Phoenix. He was like, who are you? I was like, what do you mean? I gave you that hoodie last week. And he was like, this hoodie? I said, I don't remember that. I just remember like the shadowy figure with a smile that passed it to me. He was like, I think I was blacked out drunk. He was like, as a matter of fact, I remember that was the last day I had a drink. I haven't had a drink in 7 days. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. So he was talking about the girl who he was correct about. He was talking about my father. He was talking about my career. All these things that were like really meaningful to me in that moment. And he was blacked out drunk the whole time. And then also looking at the sky, talking to God and delivering a message to me. And I was like, okay, this is my first time ever trying to give out shoes, just like not knowing what to do. And that's the story that I had. That was the moment I shared with this guy. And I was like, yo, this is exactly where I need to be and what I need to do. So from there, just like, yeah, more shoes started coming in through social media from all over the States and had to get a storage unit, and then the business side started.
That's amazing, man. Wow. Like, honestly, these are stories that are super inspiring. And, if that's not God, then I don't know who it was.
It was.
It definitely was because, the first time you ever go out, right, you run into a challenge where it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
And almost it was a redirection to let you know, like, nah, think bigger,
Yeah.
go bigger. And I think that's super important for us to really think about, because sometimes we we need a team, or God redirects us and God speaks through people. And I think at this point, Phoenix was speaking on behalf of God, letting you know, like, yo, think bigger. And the fact that this all came full circle, and that's what you're doing right now, that's a phenomenal thing. And I just can't be, more than just inspired by it.
I appreciate that, man. It's a good perspective too. Go bigger. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I think for me, it's super important because Phoenix literally paved the way, kind of just letting you know that, this is the momentum. You got to keep going.
Yeah.
So, you pick up this momentum. Social media is on you. You're reaching out to social media. You can like all these shoes. How did it go from 1 to now 40,000 along the way?
Yeah. And before I just have to think about the name of Phoenix, from the ashes,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. His name. So
we're really tapping into all
come on, man.
Right now, man.
It was crazy. It was a great moment. So from that one moment, then we started just giving out shoes out the back of my Explorer, finding moments to wear, I never wanted to like push sneakers on people that were living on the streets. So it would just be like individuals that asked me for some change, and I would redirect and just say, no, I don't have any money, but maybe I have an extra pair of shoes for you. And they would be like, oh, cool. So we would lace them up, and it would be one pair at a time. And, after a while, the one pair at a time was too slow of a process because, donations are pouring in from all over. And, I got this storage unit that's a 10 by 10, and it's like, okay, cool. And it's not as easy to give out shoes as you might think. It's like, okay, here's shoes. Like, we want to make sure that it's something that they love. We want to make sure that we are, highlighting their dignity and not like, and as a photographer, I want to share their stories if they will allow me. That's a slippery slope. Also, it's like, I don't want to, you don't need to take a picture to receive shoes from me, but I just wanted to capture the moment and share that story and what I was going through. So then the next event was going to be Have a Soul on Wheels, which through my production days, I reached out to Hollywood Galpin, and, I was like, hey, is it possible that I can rent a cube truck from you? Of course. Yeah. So they gave us a huge discount because they know that we're doing something that's for the homeless community. So from there, it was, all right, cool. We're going to load all these shoes. We're going to put men's on one side. We're going to put women's on one side of the truck. And then we're going to pull up to an area and then work out of the side door, because I knew that I never want large crowds to see the inventory that we're bringing because, then it's like, I think the worry of not getting a pair kicks in for some people. Yeah. So then that amplifies the energy in the event. So like having everything closed off and then just providing a choice of 1, 2, that seemed to work for us early on. And we just started giving out shoes for Have a Soul on Wheels. That then kind of turned into like, man, I want to do this all over the country. So, from there I was like, man, I want an RV and I want a trailer and I want to take 20,000 pairs across the United States. I was like, well, that's probably going to cost $150,000 with gas, rentals, and I could be overshooting it. But that was just like, wow, that's a big scale budget. And I was like, nah, how can we scale that down? So I ended up, for my first road trip, we went to the Bay Area, Portland, and then Utah, Salt Lake City. And we just rented a minivan. And, I took this, 20,000 pair idea and scaled it down to 250. And we just hit the road. And that's, have a soulful trip. And we're just like cruising through other people's neighborhoods, getting to know people. And it was awesome. Like our first road trip was, I think, 4 or 5 months into starting it. So you can imagine, like, we're moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then, it was interesting because, like, people were like, how can I help? Oh, you're coming. I'll post the map. I'm like, okay, cool. We're coming to Portland in 20 days. How can I help? And I'd ask them, like, well, we kind of need a place to stay. And then they'd be like, all right, cool. You can stay with us. and there was no like vetting process or anything. We just like, cool, they want to help and they got an extra room. Let's do it. So then like that was a part of the story. Like people would help us by giving us a room, and then like they're cooking us, what do you like to eat? And then we're having dinner with strangers.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's fun, man. It was like super fun and just like really organic, and you know, moments that I'll never forget. You know, it's all on our social media, so sometimes I'll kind of scroll back and be like, dang, man, when we were in Portland that one year, or when we went to Dallas, or when we made it all the way to Miami, or when we went to Philly for, you know, after Kobe passed. And you know, it's like you just start to scroll through and relive these memories. But yeah, man, it's just, you know, it started with one pair.
One pair. And that's what you guys have been doing for so much. And I think that one pair also did a lot for you as well in terms of just building that confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to accept people and, like you said, these new experiences that came along the way. You know, and one of the components that you really tap into in addition to the road trips and what you do for every city and donating these shoes across the country is you provide so much back to the youth, right? Have us all for success. I know you just concluded that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, youth is so important to you, you know. So can you tell us a little bit more about why that is?
Yeah, I mean, the youth they're important to me simply because I was there. You know, I feel like my childhood wasn't perfect. So I like to give my experiences away to these young people so that, you know, if they're going through something similar, that they can redirect. And yeah, Have a Soul for Success is our paid internship. We actually just finished our third annual program where, you know, we invite interns into our space. We give them the keys to a nonprofit, being Have a Soul. From there, we assign roles. So we got like social media marketing. We have inventory manager, volunteer coordinator, donor outreach, and then we give them the opportunities to produce their own Have a Soul events, giving back to organizations and causes that are meaningful to them. And then in the middle of all that, I think that where the value comes in is where we bring in guest speakers to speak on financial literacy. We do resume building. You know, this year we did a yoga workshop. We also did a art therapy workshop where we're just really tapping into their creativity, and you know, just feeding them, creative outlets, you know, and then they have access to our networks and get to do so much through this 6-week program, all while getting paid.
Wow. That's an amazing thing, you know, and you touch upon, you know, mental health and yoga and all these forms of healing, right? I know you just mentioned that, you know, you also kind of started therapy in your journey through that. Can you just tell us a little bit more about how that's going for you within that healing journey?
Yeah, it's an ongoing journey that shouldn't stop. You know, healing and trying to be better than the previous days. You know, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? So therapy is great. I'm glad that I have an outlet and somebody that I can trust to speak to. And it's not easy. You know, it's something that really comes with age, and you'll have to learn how to explore those emotions and, you know, share them with people. But I think if you hold on to them, then that's disaster just waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Rikki, you know, there's so much to really untackle, you know, but one in particular that really comes to mind is like the celebratory moments that you've had throughout your life. One in particular is your 8th year anniversary of Have a Soul, which is a beautiful accomplishment to you and the rest of the team. Looking back, did you ever really dream that you would be here and this far?
That's an interesting question because, you know, when I said the words out loud, when I said Have a Soul out loud for the first time, it was like, this is going to be really big. You know, in that moment, I grabbed all the social media, grabbed the website domain, and I was like,
and they were all available.
Everything was available. Yeah. So it was like, okay, special. This Have a Soul. It's like, whoa, this is crazy. So yes, I thought it was going to be big. Now, did I think like, would I ever be on the Ellen Show or traveling the country working with like the Pacers or different NBA teams? Like, those were all surprises. And I tell my friends this, like, these are things that I never want to get used to. You know, being invited to a Dallas Mavericks game or a Pacers game via the team because we're doing work in their city. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, just another game. You know, I want to take in every moment and just have gratitude for those moments because they are so special to me, man. You know, there's just being able to just work in that arena, or, you know, with professional athletes, or, you know, all the way to the youth. Like, I have so much gratitude for every single day.
What keeps you going?
There's always I think what keeps me going is there's always something new. There's always something, like, an opportunity like this is really cool to be here, share this story, get to know new people, have new people from your following reach out and say, oh, cool, man, I saw you from here. And then just knowing that it came from Home Edit. Shout out to the Home Edit. You know, it's like, hey,
real.
You know what I mean?
Literally, and shout out to just everything. Yeah.
It's so cool to see that. So to have your wife, you be like, yo, you need to connect with them. And then from that moment, you're in New York and, hey, I'm going to be traveling in LA. Cool. And then 6 weeks, you know, oh, I'll be there in 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks, like, oh, I'll be there next week. Oh, I'm here. So it's like, it's just dope to watch everything unfold. So new moments really keep me going.
You know what? And that's inspiration for all of us, because, you know, sometimes you have to bet on yourself, right? If I didn't reach out to you, then this probably wouldn't have happened, you know, but it also attests to who you are as a person. If you weren't so inviting, this probably wouldn't have happened either. You know, literally when I DM'd you, you immediately responded back. And I'm like, there's no way. It was meant to be, you know? And I literally feel like this is a moment that I appreciate so much, because I was looking forward to this conversation so much, because I'm like, yo, we really made this happen, from one DM, from the Home Edit to on the screen to in person. But I think the energy we are experiencing in real time is one that, you know, it's something I value the most.
I appreciate that.
You know what I'm
Appreciate
saying?
that.
But in the last couple of questions here, as we wrap up, I have to ask, did you ever reconnect or have a chance to reconnect with Becky?
She actually passed away from cancer, but had family members reach out to me via Facebook, and just them knowing the story, seeing what these two pairs of shoes did for me as a kid. They're like, yeah, that's Becky, right? That's her. She'd be very proud. So indirectly knowing from her family that they're proud of the movement that she helped create without even knowing it is special to me.
Wow. You know, and one of my favorite quotes is, you know, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And I sit there with so many times, because I too ask myself tough questions of, like, what is my purpose in life? You know, and what is my why? And I think so many viewers out there today, wherever walks you are in life, we ask ourselves that really tough question, you know, and for someone who asked him the tough question, you were able to reveal that, you know, through conversations of God and being able to just see unfold. You know, is there anything you can share to those who may still be seeking their purpose or their mission in life?
Yeah, I think my advice for that would be to, and I was just talking to my wife about it this morning, is she has this brilliant idea that's very large scale. And my advice to her was, okay, this is great. We'll get there. But if we were going to start tomorrow, how could we scale it down and do it? So, for an example, the road trip with the RV, 20 different city tour, you know, and not being able to fund that, we were able to fund a smaller one with 250 pairs. So I told her, I was just like, how can you start tomorrow, scale it down, and think about it that way, just to get it started? Because once you start, or if you're thinking on the bigger picture, I think that might slow you down at times, because you don't think that you can get there tomorrow. But at least you can take one baby step to the smaller scale version of what you want to do, and at least start. And then once you start the momentum, there's no stopping you. So I feel like encouraging her to do that. Just start. At some point, just start, so you can start that large scale, making your way to the large scale vision that you have.
Step by step.
So, yeah.
You know, and shout out to her because I feel her energy here. She's in the building today. So,
Whoop, whoop.
you know, I definitely want to take this moment right here as we wrap up to really, you know, give you your flowers. We do this on a show because it's important for us to highlight, you know, people like yourself who are really changing the game. They're really changing people's lives, you know, through the comfort and through the inspiration of like sneakers and donating sneakers. But it's so much more than that, right? It's a movement. It's so much that you're able to plant a seed for somebody to then evolve and become into somebody similar to that happened to you. So I want to take this time to really give you your flowers for all that you do and for the community, for the countless of lives that you have inspired, but will continue to inspire along your way.
That means a lot. And it definitely, I have a lot of respect for what you do and the courage and you know, you found inspiration to reach out. So I really feel like it started there. So I thank you and would love to take some of these flowers and split them with you. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Yes.
But you know what? We always turn it back to the guests and ask the question of, who would you give your flowers to?
Let's go ahead and give my flowers to my older brother, you know, for the fact that, you know, that I've seen him become so great with his discipline to be an amazing father himself, you know, because we didn't have the right childhood at all, you know, and it was tough. So to watch that, him grow, that's the first person I would give flowers to. And then, you know, of course, my mom, shout out her because she's just an amazing, inspiring woman that has done so much for Have a Soul and myself. So yeah, hopefully I can split those flowers up and share them with my family.
Absolutely. Can't wait to, you know, pick up your mom's book as well and kind of tune in, tap into that, you know. And, you know, Rikki, for just the last question here for all the viewers today, you know, what message do you want to share with them? And how do we also best support you moving forward?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to Have a Soul, you can check out the website or Instagram handle, which is Have a Soul, HAVASOLE, also .com. Yeah, if you're looking to find inspiration, purpose, passion, you know, I would say start with your passion and then try to reach out and find your purpose. No matter what you do with your life, purpose is going to include being kind and serving others. So, you know, if it's you're doing music and you say, this is my purpose, I'm supposed to reach these people through my music, tap into, okay, how is this going to serve people? You know, ask yourself that question. If it's, you know, whatever that purpose might be, just know that it's going to include helping people. That's where you'll find purpose. Passion can be everything. Basketball, I was passionate about basketball, photography, and sneakers and all that, right? But it didn't really fulfill me. So it wasn't until I gave away my sneaker collection, that's when I found purpose. So you're on the right track with your passion, but serve people and then you'll be able to introduce everything that you are passionate about into your purpose. And now I get to travel the country and give away shoes to people, take pictures and do incredible things like this. So it's amazing.
And it's a start of a long journey ahead, bro.
Yeah, you know.
You know what I'm saying? And I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to continue following your journey as well.
Thank you.
But again, I just appreciate the time today. And thank you so much for your energy and just being here.
Man, an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. My man.
You. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, there you have it. That was Off the Cuff with Rikki Mendias.